This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Baruch haba and welcome everyone to a special edition of All Parsha and the Haturim on Parshios Tazria and Metzora. For today's session, we would like to focus on 7 basic comments in the Haturim that will open for us new vistas of understanding of the significance of words, the gematria of certain words, and the various halachos that are derived from them. We begin with a famous comment of the Haturim in the beginning of Parshas Tazria, Parak Yud Beis, Pasuk Beis, Zachar, the word Zachar. Isha ki Tazria v'yalda Zachar. The word Zachar, gematria 227, is the same numerical value as Zachar begematria bracha. Male, it has the same numerical value as blessing. This is already brought in the Rishonim. The Moshe of Zakenim brings this gematria. Rabbi Lezer Migar Meiser brings this gematria. And Rav Shmuel Yaakov Bornstein, in his Sefer Zois Liakov, he brings a important dimension of this gematria, that Zachar is gematria bracha. The Gemara Nida tells us that Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, Amar Rav Yitzchak, Amar Rav Ami. When a Zachar comes to the world, Shalom comes to the world. Shenemar, Shilchu Kar Moishel Eretz Zachar Zekar. That along with a male, with a Zachar, comes peace. And the Gemara tells us that Hashem has not found in this world any kli that contains and is filled with blessing as Shalom. Shenemar Hashem oiz la'amoy yitein Hashem yivarech es amoy va'shalom. And as the Mishnah says at the end of Uksin, the Sifri says in Nasai that Shalom is great, that Hashem is chaysim, He seals all blessing with Shalom. Yisa Hashem panav eilecha v'yasim lecha Shalom. So since Zachar brings with it Shalom, and Shalom is the ultimate receptacle to bracha, this adds another level of dimension to the significance of the gematria, that Zachar is gematria bracha. Now we move on to the second offering of the Baal Haturim, on the very same pasuk, Vitama Shivas Yamim. That when a male is born, the mother is tamei for 7 days. Well, that is reminiscent of another 7-day period, namely the 7 days of Avelos. Says the Baal Haturim, this is what it means in Koheles, Parakei, Pasuk Tesvav, Kol Umas Shaba Kain Yelech. The way you come is the way you go. You come into the world, there's a 7-day period of Tumah. Your mother is Tameh for 7 days. When one leaves this world, one's relatives also have an Avelus period of 7 days. So the coming into the world is similar and parallel to the leaving the world. Okay, we move on to Parak Yud Beis, Pasuk Gimel. Uvayom hashmini yimal basar arlasai. Uvayom hashmini yimal basar arlasai. This is the mitzvah of Milah. This pasuk has 5 words. This pasuk has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 23 letters. The same number of words, same number of letters as Vayichulu Hashemayim Va'aretz B'chol Tziva'am. The pasuk of the Bris Milah has the same number of words as a pasuk Keneged Shabbos in Bereshis, Parak Beis, Pasuk Aleph, to indicate Gedoyla Milah Shadoicha Shabbos. Milah is great that it pushes away Shabbos. The Maharal explains why is Milah Doicha Shabbos. Shabbos represents the number 7. The natural order of the world, Milah, is number 8. The supernatural always supersedes and overrides the natural. But the number of words and number of letters in the pasuk Vayom Hashmini Yimal Basar Lasai is the equivalent of the number of words and letters in Vayichulu Hashemayim Ba'aretz V'chol Tzva'am, indicating Gedoyla Milah Shadoicha Es HaShabbos. We move on to Parak Yud Beis, Pasuk Vav. Uvamlois Yimei Tahara Levain or Levas. What do you bring? You bring Keves Ben Shazala Uben Yoina Oitar. Either a young pigeon or a turtle dove. And the Baal Turim points out this is an anomaly because it always says tar before the yoina. Why here does it say yoina before the tar? Well, it says the Baal Turim because here you're only bringing one. And therefore, if you find a yoina, do not bring a tar. Because the nature of a tar is so loyal to its mate that if it loses its mate, it will mourn over it and it will never marry anyone else. So therefore, why disrupt such a beautiful marriage? And therefore, even though usually it says shtei tayrim oy shnei b'nei yoina, here it says ben yoina oy tar, because the yoina is first choice, because if you're going to take a tar, the mate will never be able to remarry. So that explains the anomaly of the ben yoina appearing before the tar. Now we go on to the fifth offering, Perek Yud Gimel Pasuk Hey. Perek Yud Gimel Pasuk Hey. The pasuk says, "V'ra'ah hakohen oisai," and the kohen will see it by Yom Hashvi on the seventh day. Sheinis again, "V'hinei keha hanega," and behold, the nega has dimmed. Says the Baal Haturim, "V'hinei hanega," lashon v'hinei, the word v'hinei, noifel al davar shaloi noida kaidam lachin. Why does it say v'hinei keha hanega? It says the kohen will see it on the seventh day. V'hinei, and behold. What does behold mean? When you're talking to your friend, you don't call up your friend, "Hey, Shloimi," "Hey, Rivka," and behold. That's not a word that people typically use. What does it mean, v'hinei? The Baal Haturim says the word v'hinei refers to something that was not known before. The status of this nega was unknown before because this individual was locked up. And an example of such a usage is in the pasuk, Vayihi ba'boiker v'hinei Leah. It was the morning, and behold, look who's next to you, Yaakov. It's Leah. That was a great surprise. Yaakov thought it was Rachel. So the Baal Haturim is pointing out a very important understanding of the word hinei. Hinei means a surprise, something you would not have known until now, something, so to speak, shocking. V'hinei Leah, v'hinei hanega keya. The nega has dimmed. You wouldn't have known. It's not something known until now, as this person was locked up. So I'd like to share with you, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, in his commentary to Chumash, discusses in a number of places the meaning of the word v'hinei. So, for example, in Parshas Vayera, Perek Yud Ches Pasuk Tes, the Malachim say, "Where is Sarah?" Vayomer hinei ba'oyal, and Rashi says, what Avraham was saying was, she is modest, tznuahi. And the Mefarshe Rashi all explain in different ways. How does Rashi know that what Yaakov Avinu was saying was that she's modest? Is that the message that Avraham Avinu, was saying? Vayomer hinei ba'oyal, she's modest. Vayomer hinei ba'oyal. Maybe Avraham Avinu is just saying, a matter of fact, she's in the tent. So Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky says that in his opinion, the word hinei means something that is obvious. Avraham responded, "You want to know where my wife is? Hinei ba'oyal, obviously she's in the tent. She's a tznuah." What kind of question is that? So here we encounter another meaning of the word hinei. That hinei means the following is obvious, it's clear, it's pashat. With this we could possibly explain a pasuk in Tehillim. The pasuk says in Tehillim, "Hinei lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael." Behold, the guardian of Israel does not slumber, does not sleep. What is the meaning of that? Hinei lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. Well, says the Emes Liakov. Based on the Emes Liakov, we could explain that Hinei lo yanum v'lo yishan doesn't mean surprise God doesn't sleep, but it's obvious, of course. He's always there for us. He's always looking out for us. He's always watching us. So perhaps in that pasuk, Hinei lo yanum v'lo yishan, the word Hinei means a davar pashut. It is obvious. However, let me show you two more examples of where the word Hinei refers to a surprise. It says by the birth of Rivka, Vayimlu yom eladas v'hinei soimim bevitna. Says Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, the word v'hinei implies something unusual that you would not have thought of, like in the pasuk Vayihi v'boiker v'hinei hi Leah. Now, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky may be saying that there's a difference between the word hinei and v'hinei, because in Parshas Vayera it says Vayomer hinei ba'oyal. Hinei might mean a davar pashad, or hinei lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. But v'hinei, Vihine means a surprise. Perhaps there's a difference between the word hine and vihine, but in any event, says Rabbi Yaakov, the word vihine in Parak Chafei Pasuk Chavdal Vayimlu Yamel Aledas Vihine Soimim Bivitna refers to a surprise. What is a surprise? That she has twins. Twins were common, but says Rabbi Yaakov, the surprise was that typically twins would be a boy and a girl. But in this instance, to have ta'imim shnei banim, that's a davar meshuna. And also by Tamar, Parak Lamed Ches Pasuk Chav Zayin says, "Vayhi beis Latav v'hinei sa'imim bevitna." They were two boys. That was also somewhat of a surprise. Likewise, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky uses this idea in Parshas Miketz, Parak Mem Aleph Pasuk Zayin, "Vayikatz Paroi v'hinei chaloim." Paroi awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And Rashi says the dream was complete, and he needed interpreters. How does Rashi know V'hinei chaloim means it was complete and he needed interpreters? Says Rabbi Yaakov, the word V'hinei again refers to something which is surprising and shocking. Here too, Paroi saw such a realistic dream. It seemed like it was actually happening, that one cow was eating the other, one stalk was eating the other, that he thought it was actually transpiring, and then he woke up and it was a surprise it was a dream. He didn't think it was a dream. He thought it was real life. So now that the dream was concluded, now that's how Rashi knows it needed interpretation. Again, we see the word vihine refers to something shocking, something surprising. Now we move on to the next offering, Parak Yud Gimel, Pasuk Nun Tes, which is at the end of, in Parshas Tazria, where the pasuk says Nega Tzoras, Zois Toiras Nega Tzoras. Says about Haturim 10 times it says the word Nega Tzoras in Tazria and in Parshas Metzora together. So in the combination, it's interesting. The Baal Haturim refers to Parshas Metzora as Parshas Zois Tia Toiras HaMetzora, a total of 10 times, because through 10 sins, Tzaras comes. Based on Vayikra Rabbah, Parsha Yud Zayin Ois Gimel, so Keneged, the 10 sins that bring Tzaras, it says Nega Tzaras 10 times. And then the Baal Haturim says the word Toiras is used 5 times. Parak Yudaleh Pasuk Beis in Metzora, Toiras Asher Boya Noga, in Parak Yudaleh Pasuk Lamed Beis in Metzora, Zois HaToira, Toiras HaTzaras 5 times. Keneged the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, to indicate that someone who speaks Lashon Hara, it is like violating the Chamisha Chumshei Torah. Then the Baal Haturim says, adding up all the various subjects of Nigei Adam, Nigei Begadim, Nigei Batim, we find 10 chapters. Keneged the through. If somebody says the Baal Haturim, if one is Mekayim the Aseres Hadibros, they will be saved from these 10 teachings and 10 subjects of Tzaras. So this is all going with the Divrei Chazal, that what precipitates Tzaras are 10 possible different sins. I would just like to share with you that elsewhere in the Baal Haturim, here in Tazria and in Metzora, the Baal Haturim refers to another statement of Chazal, that there are 7 Averos that bring Tzaras. So firstly we go to Parak Yud Gimel, Pasuk Lamed Vav, where the Pasuk says that if the Kohen sees the Metzora and it's spread, lo yevaker, he should not investigate. In other words, he's just metami the person. Says about Haturim twice in the Masoretic notes, there is a reference to the words lo yevaker. It says lo yevaker ha-kohen l'seir ha-tzahoiv, and it says lo yevaker bein toiv l'ra. Says the Baal Haturim, because this person was lo yevaker bein toiv l'ra, because this person did not investigate between good and bad. As the Gemara in Erechin says on Daf Tezayin, there are 7 sins that precipitate Tzaras. That is why the Kohen comes and lo yevaker ha-kohen l'seir ha-tzahoiv tamehu. The reason why the Kohen renders tameh is because lo yevaker bein toiv l'ra. Okay. And if I could just share with you in Parak Yud Daled, Pasuk Zayin, here too, the Baal Haturim references the 7 Averos that bring Negoim, and he says that the reason why the Kohen HaMitaher, gets sprinkled. The reason why the kohen hamitaher sprinkles on the mitaher 7 times is corresponding to the 7 sins that bring lashon hara, and that bring negaim. So the Gemara tells us there are 7 chatoim that bring negaim, and corresponding to them, there are 7 sprinklings on the Metzora. So these are 7 offerings of the Baal Haturim, Parsha Tazria Metzora. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu spare us from speaking lashon hara and the severe repercussions that come from it. May we only have shalom v'shalva, hashgate v'vetach, refuos v'yeshuos lanu u'lechol Yisrael. Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.